Good evening. It is the 7th of August, 2020. Welcome to Bull Fierce the Way It Is Naturally. I'm Perry, and we're going to get into myths surrounding bodybuilding. And I know we've heard quite a few over the years, and we'll get right into that in a moment. Hi, and welcome back. Before we get into anything here, I hope I don't have any technical issues. Started with a new microphone system here. We're going wireless with the relatively new Rode Wireless Go. I did some testing out, and it seemed to be working quite well, and any feedback I can get on that. If anybody notices any difference in the quality of the audio transmission, that would be wonderful to hear. Some good news and bad news. Obviously, you realize that even though this is Spotlight Friday, we don't have a guest. But good news is I do believe that we have one for next Friday, and I will be announcing that over the weekend. What else? Training is going good. Still a ways off on opening up our facility here. Been doing some collaboration or some discussions, a lot of discussions in the different Facebook groups. Quite happy about that. I do love helping people out. A great way to network, and plus I like putting a smile on people's face. I do realize there are so many people out there that are just, don't know where to start, or they're mid-journey or whatever the case might be. And I do love being a part of that. And I try to be as constructive as possible. As with everything else, occasionally somebody doesn't take your responses in the best, but you just try and shake it off and keep a smile and go on to the next one. And that's all you can do, right? So moving on from there, I thought today would be just a good thing to maybe tackle myths surrounding bodybuilding and bodybuilders, so to speak. We've heard so many of them over, especially if you've been involved in the field, so many of them over the course of time. It's quite interesting how a lot of these, people still believe a lot of these things. And some of these things are relatively new because, as the technology improves and other things improve, people find other things to either call out or call down or whatever you want to call it. So we're going to start off. I did a little bit of research. I have a few in my back of my mind anyways that I've heard ever since I started training. The classic is, when you stop training, all your muscle turns into fat. Well, we're going to get into that one further down the list. But I did find a rather encompassing list. I don't necessarily agree with everything that's on here, but I did find it quite interesting. First one was, let's say they have a list of 30. I don't think there's any particular order about which is, most important or not. So we'll just start at the top. It says, myth number 1, you can get as big as a pro bodybuilder without taking steroids. It just takes longer. Well, there's some truth to that, but in reality is, as big as a pro bodybuilder? No. Can you get a physique that most people would not believe is natural? You sure can. Why do you not see a lot of that? Well, simply put, it takes a course of many, many years, in many cases decades, to get there. People want things too quickly, and they're not willing to put in the time. Some people think that 2 or 3 years is a long time. Well, not when you're trying to build your ultimate physique. That's not really a long period of time at all. It's a lifetime venture. and I urge all of my clients and just people that I talk to, I try to inject that into all my conversations in these Facebook groups. Look at it as a lifelong adventure, and you can start competing if you want, or not competing, that's up to you, but you can build a substantial size physique. If you're a man, I mean, I don't want to speak for all women, but most men would say, they want a woman with some nice muscle tone and shape and size, but they don't want what you're seeing these days. It's rather on the disgusting side. Anyways, that's up to a woman how she wants to look. As long as she's doing it natural, I could care less. But if she is doing it natural, she definitely has constraints, and you'll never see a natural female bodybuilder looking like any of those. Sorry, they're not even women. Those individuals that you see in the screen that people seem to applaud. It's just not possible because of the fact that a normal woman, a normal man, even though we both carry testosterone, females do not carry a very small amount of testosterone. And therefore, the amount of muscle size they can acquire is limited by that factor. Okay, let's get on to the second one in the order. In order to get really big, you have to eat a super high calorie diet. I always like to point out as I move along that I'm speaking on behalf of natural training athletes. Okay, so natural training athletes have they're going to have a different metabolic rate. Most anabolics or any type of performance enhancing drug will alter your metabolism. And you can eat, generally speaking, substantially more calories without gaining a pile of fat. But if you look at most of the pro bodybuilders, and I'm going to do an entire show on this, I'm going to show many of the pro bodybuilders and how they look in off season, and you'll be disgusted with many of them. But the fact is, they do eat a super high calorie. Matter of fact, they force feed themselves on a continual basis. There's many athletes out there in the pro scene that are not natural, that are eating anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 calories a day. I can't even imagine that. I would have to almost eat constantly to have 4,000 calories. I just can't do it, and I'm 5'10", I'm 215 pounds. I can't eat like that. I don't know who possibly can, but you're in a different realm when you're taking drugs like that. So as a natural athlete, you can't, and can you get really big? You can reach your maximum physique potential. Let me rephrase that. You'll never reach your potential throughout your whole lifetime, which is a good thing, because now you get to train your whole life and still have a goal ahead of you. But you can definitely have a caloric intake that'll get you slightly above maybe maintenance. It'll allow you to gain strength, but you can still, and I think that's one of the things further down the list, you can still actually make gains even if you're in a slight caloric deficit. That's a fact. Number 3, if you eat a low-fat diet, it doesn't matter how many calories you take in, you won't gain any fat. Well, that's a lot of crap, because if you take in an excess amount of any type of macro whatsoever, you are going to gain weight. Calories are, even though I joined one group that I joined is actually the MyFitnessPal calorie counters. And I think a lot of these people believe that you can just do calorie counting and that is it. You can for a while and you will get results, but you are going to reach a plateau. I guarantee it. So fact is, can you eat a much higher amount as some of the other macros? It's possible, and still not gain fat. But if you eat too much protein, you will get fat. You eat too much carbohydrate, you will get fat. I guarantee that. I have 40 plus years to back that up. And if you took any time to study nutritional facts, you'd realize you cannot go overboard on any one macro and not expect it to be stored as fat in some way, because you can only excrete so much, you can only utilize so much, and the rest will get stored as fat. Okay. Number 4, the more you work out, the more you'll grow. Boy, I see some funny stuff in these groups. I keep relating back to these groups because I keep hearing flashbacks of what some of these people say. And it's not to put them down. I'm not doing that, but it brings up just how much help some people do need. They are in the dark, so to speak, about how to attain their best physique. Now, the more you work out, the more you'll grow. Not matter of fact, it's to the contrary. Arthur Jones, for those people who don't know, Arthur Jones did a major study. Yes, the people he was working with were on anabolics. No two ways about it. But the fact is, his study didn't center around that. His study centered around the fact that if a human being takes a muscle group and takes, they create growth in a muscle, you need to create a stress and then allow for recuperation and rest. That is how you grow muscle. Okay, you need to have a stress placed on that muscle that tears it down and signals to it that it needs to be stronger or bigger, or whatever, for the next time. That's how you do it. Now, every time you go past, the amount of time that it actually takes to get to that point where you've attained that level of trauma to the muscle, you're taking away from recuperation time. Now, whether you're on anabolics or any type of performance-enhancing drug, it does not matter. If you're natural, it's even more important. Most people that I know are in a state of overtraining constantly. And they wonder why they hit plateaus. They wonder why they can't get stronger. They wonder why they can't get bigger. It is so easy to overtrain. Some people are of the belief that it's impossible to overtrain. Well, I'm sorry, but your body has limited resource. Your body has a limited amount. Your body needs to recuperate in between training sessions. Your body has a limited amount of nervous energy. You put too much stress on your central nervous system, you don't give it time to rest and recuperate, you are not going to grow. Sooner or later, and you'll see this constantly, the growth starts to go down to a trickle. And that is why, because you're training too much, too long, and not intense enough. The old adage still applies. You can train long and you can train hard. You can't train both. Okay? Now, say the longer you work out, the better. Well, this kind of goes hand in hand. Matter of fact, the shorter, the quicker you can get that workout done, do the job you're supposed to do, and get out of there and start recuperating and supplying the nutritional needs, the better your development is going to be. Every moment that you can add to your recuperation is a moment well used. That's about as simple analogy as I can use. Okay? Let's go down here just a little further here. You have to bear with me here. I just want to make sure I'm on the right screen. Yeah, there we go. I said you don't have to be, okay, you don't have to be strong to be big. I'm not sure if I agree with this myth or not, because I do believe that you need a certain amount of strength. Do you need to be super, super strong? No. But strong is a relative term. Strong is, the guy or the girl that's 4'9", and 140 pounds versus the guy that's 6'4", and 240 pounds. It's all relative, right? The idea is if you shoot for strength and within certain protocols, you can't be training single and double reps and expect to grow muscle when you're a natural athlete. You'll grow some, but it's going to level off, and you can probably gain strength, but you're not going to gain a whole lot of body hypertrophy. Anyways, body growth. It's just not going to happen. Okay, so you need to develop strength, and I believe you should do some type of cycling where at some points you're focusing a little bit more on your strength, and therefore it will benefit you on your growth. Okay. What else we got here? Okay, the training, you don't have to be strong. Okay, the training programs that work best for pro bodybuilders are best for everyone. Well, this goes back to the old idea that many pro bodybuilders train long sessions. They also train with either medium to light weights. There's not a whole lot of bodybuilders out there that actually train using maximal weights, high intensity. There's several well-known people in the past that have. Ronnie Coleman always trained heavy. Dorian Yates always trained heavy. I subscribe to the high intensity training program. That's not to be confused with the HIIT, which is high intensity interval training, which is an aerobic approach. Okay, you can't build muscle. Okay, the training program. Pro bodybuilders, many of them will go into the gym and literally, go in twice a day, spend 2-3 hours at a time. And even though they're in a state of overtraining, because of the amount of drugs they're using, their body will compensate to a certain degree. That doesn't mean to say that they wouldn't do better if they could get it around their head, that they could be more intense and put in less time and do better. Many people just can't wrap their head around that, okay? But it's a fact. It is a fact, okay? So you need to stay away from what pro bodybuilders do, because pro bodybuilders, first of all, have worked up from, whether you're a pro natural or a pro not natural, and I mean a real natural. The idea is you had to get there through a process. So you can't take Joe or Jill beginner and put them on Joe and Jill pro. You have to get there. It's like anything else. I don't care what field you go into. You know, you start out as a novice and you develop skills, and you develop feel, and you develop intuition, you develop strengths. So over the course of time, all of a sudden, you know, you'll be in that bracket. You know, if you put in enough persistence and you have, you know, a certain amount of genetics and drive and you know, and are willing to put in the time and all the factors that apply to becoming, you know, a champion. And a champion means many things. It doesn't necessarily mean a champion on the stage. You just be a champion in life, you know? Okay. See it. You can't build muscle on a sub-maintenance caloric intake. Well, that's not true. But with that said, sorry, that's my dog in the background. With that said, you cannot make gains if you're on a severely restricted caloric intake diet. You have to be reasonable. If you're, let's say you had figured it out, and it's very tough to do 100%, but let's say you figured out that you needed 2,000 calories a day to maintain your BMR plus the amount of your intense training that you have going along with that. If you were somewhere in eating about 85 to 90% of that, you can still make gains. And matter of fact, you might even make better gains than if you're somebody that's taking in, 20% in excess of that. Because eventually they're going to be carrying a fair amount of fat, and it's going to have an effect on your metabolic rate. That is going to have an effect, whether you believe it or not, it's going to have an effect on you physically, psychologically, and just on and on down the line. So I actually believe if you're right at your maintenance, slightly above, slightly below, that's where you want to be. You do not, unless you want to be a power lifter, or you're just training for strength, that's fine. You can take in more calories, and because you're not really worried about your figure or your V taper or whatever the case might be. So, but for those who want to attain the best physique possible, stay at your caloric maintenance, slightly below or slightly above, and you'll get your best gains right there. Okay. Get on to the next one. You can't grow if you only work each body part once a week. This is pure myth. Pure myth. Why do I know that? Well, I know it through my own experience, and I know many other top bodybuilders. There's not many, several others, because many of them, like I said, they just can't wrap their head around the idea of training less. Dorian Yates comes to mind, Mike Menser. I can tell you how my first experience, those people who train under HIIT, which is high intensity training. Menser coined the phrase heavy duty training, but it's a bit of a misnomer, because when you say heavy duty, you think, well, you got these astronomical weights you will have to use. No, what it is taking, using maximum weights for the rep range you should need to do to basically create the immediate need for that muscle to grow, and then you rest and recuperate. Now, the idea is many people will only work their body parts once a week, sometimes once over 8 or 9 days. In 1995, I was 35 years old. Even though Menser came on the scene when I was in my 20s, like many people, I looked at what he said and I thought, no, that's garbage. Because like everybody else, I didn't want to waste any time. I just went with the status quo, and I did what everybody else was doing. Okay, but I decided in 1995, here I was going to school. I was 35 years old at the time. I was completely natural. I was going to university in a full-time course. I was working 40 hours a week, And I was training like a bugger, and I decided at that point that I'm going to try high intensity training to get ready for the Alberta Bodybuilding Championships. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, oh boy, I've been out of competition for a while. I haven't been out of training, been training people, training myself, but, can I do this? And I thought, I'm going to do an experiment. And that's when I did my first experiment with high intensity training. And let me tell you, I went into the gym. This is not a word of a lie. I went in there. I did Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I had a 3-day split. I didn't do any aerobic work. So I had my Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturday, and Sunday off. I worked my body parts once a week. And I only did one set. I did 3 exercises, 1 set per exercise. That was it. I know there's a lot of people that are shaking their heads saying, no, that's not possible. Well, it is possible. I came in the heaviest and the strongest and in the most, and I've always been in condition, but in the best condition I've ever hit for a show. I won the show. It was actually a drug tested show. All the other class winners tested positive. I was the only one that didn't, because I was the only one that wasn't. And therefore, I was the overall winner that year. 35 years old with all that workload, training on HIIT. So I do know that you can train your body parts once a week and not only make gains, but as a matter of fact, I endorse that system. I just don't use it with everybody, because where you have to take your sets is this extreme mental battle. Beginners are not ready for that. You can grow on a lot of different systems that aren't so psychologically challenging, because the psychological element of training is by far the most important element of training. But you need to be able to get yourself into that zone. And if you don't take it there, you're not going to get the maximum results, and therefore you're not going to get the maximum benefit. So, do I believe in that system? 100%. I believe it is the best system, the most efficient system. I won't say it's the only system. Take it for what it is. Okay, you can't make gains if you only train with weights 3 days a week. Well, that kind of says the same thing. Sure you can. You should only rest 45 seconds in between sets. This is a debate I do with people. I watch many people and they're going by their watch all the time. Why are you going by your watch? Is your watch telling you how you feel? Unless you're training for cardio and you're trying to hit certain targets and you're working with your heart rate, throw your watch out, throw the clock out. Don't get lazy, but when you're ready to go, you're ready to go. Don't waste time. That's what you need to do. That's because your mind knows when it's ready to go. Okay, and if you push too hard, you're going to create staleness. If you're not pushing enough, you're going to get lazy and stop going. You need to develop that skill where you know when to start your next set. It has nothing to do with 30 seconds, 45 seconds, or a minute and a half. If you want to do powerlifting, Olympic lifting, you need more rest in between, because you're not trying to attain the same thing. I'm talking about people that are trying to alter their body, drop body weight, gain body weight, become fitness or bodybuilding competitors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If that's what your goal is, throw away the clock, throw away your watch, develop intuition. I do that with all my clients. I want them to develop intuition where they know when it's time to do the next set, okay? You have to use fancy weightlifting equipment in order to make the best gains. Another funny thing. And I can relate so much to these because I've been through it. 43 years I've been training. And I have trained, what people have for gyms these days, it's like the difference between going out in a dinghy and going out in a luxury cruise liner. The stuff that you have in the gyms these days is beyond my wildest imagination. I trained in everything from, I did my first training in a Nautilus place where there was no free weights, nothing whatsoever. That got me going. Then I ended up training in the base of my house with the old vinyl weights and everything, and I made great gains. And then I went to the YMCA in Ottawa. And this is not a word of lie. In the YMCA in Ottawa, you actually had to put your equipment together. There was no machines whatsoever. There was one pulley that we used for a seated row and for doing triceps. That was it. There was a pair of 2 stands, which was just one pole and a little grip at the top. That's what you did squats on. When you want to do press behind neck or in front of your neck, whatever, you took a bench, you put it up against the wall, and you put a cushion on it, and you use those 2 stands, and that's how you did press behind neck. Everything else, you had to fabricate your dumbbells with a wrench. That's how I trained. And I still do 99% of my work free weight. They put so much time into developing machinery that looks pretty and is totally useless. I don't care even the best brands. It's like they hired a bunch of engineers, but didn't hire actually lifters have been doing it for years. They're missing angles, setups, adjustments, things that are just wrong and they don't feel good. And they don't work anatomically with most people. So no, actually you can create a fantastic physique. If you had the potential and you chose to go the route, you could win major shows on free weights alone. Take my word for it. You have the goal, you have the guts, you have the desire, and you're willing to put in the time, you can do it. Okay, weight training makes you big. Aerobic work cuts you up. Another fallacy. Weight training can be used to make yourself big. Can be also just used to make yourself strong. Aerobic exercise, as a matter of fact, does not cut you up at all. Aerobic exercise is good for just that, for becoming aerobically fit. I put many people on systems that I use to get ready for shows, and not only are they aerobically fit for the show, but they're also in supercut condition, and I get there myself. Very little actual aerobic work itself, but by changing the training around, if some people just want to have a nice physique and they want to be nice and lean, that is so easily attained without ever going out and doing any road work or bike work or whatever. You know, if you like to do that kind of thing, that's fine. But keep in mind, if you do too much aerobic work, whether it be a treadmill, bike, running, doesn't matter. You are going to slow to a point where you can even nullify your muscular gains, because those activities do not build muscle and tone. I know there's people out there who say, well, what about sprinters? Well, sprinters aren't doing aerobic work either. They're doing short, intense work. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, that's like HIIT training. That's exactly what it is. All out, done. When those guys get to the end of the 100-yard dash, you know, they're exhausted. I'm just saying, folks, okay? You can completely reshape a muscle by doing isolation exercises. Total baloney, okay? Unfortunately, genetics takes part in many applications of your body, your physique goals, whether it be competition or just how you want to look. Everybody has a certain structure. You can't change your bone structure. Everybody has muscle insertion points, and you can do isolation work till the cows come home. You're not going to lengthen your biceps. You're not going to, if you don't have, 2 teardrops around your knee for quads, so be it. You can develop those muscle groups. You're not going to have, it's not going to grow there because it's not there. Okay? And that applies. You can look at different bodybuilders, even pro bodybuilders. I see bodybuilders up there on the pro stage and their lats start halfway up their back. And then there's guys that lats that start at their waist. That's what it is. You take what you're given, but those who succeed are the ones that take what they have and make the most out of it. I can see that we're not going to get all the way through this list because I usually like to cap this off at 30 minutes. So I think we'll be able to make this a second half, okay? Let's go a little bit further. Let's see. If you get a pump, you're working the muscles adequately to ensure muscle hypertrophy, or your muscles are burning. That means you are promoting muscle growth. Not true at all. All that means is you flush the muscle with blood, and that blood is full of lactic acid. Used up. The nutrients are being pushed into the muscle. And there's nowhere to go short term. That's all it means. Does not mean growth. Does not mean growth whatsoever. And you can get that pump as I explained, I do high intensity training. I don't have to do high reps, and I can get the super pump through low repetitions, super high intense work. That's not an indicator, it may be a good feeling, a release of endorphins, etc. It does not mean your muscles are going to grow. You can sit there, as many pro bodybuilders do, okay, and train with a pathetic little weights and pump that muscle right up. Doesn't mean they're going to make any changes. The only changes they get is because of the drugs they're taking. As a natural athlete, I guarantee you, if you take light weights and just pump your muscles up, you'll feel good for a while you're in the gym. You are not going to continue to make gains. That is out of the question. Dispute it all you want. I've been around too long. It just doesn't happen. There's other indicators, and that's not one of them, okay? We're going to do one more, I think, and that's it for today. If you do, here's a classic. If you do hundreds of sit-ups a day, you'll eventually achieve a narrow washboard type midsection. Well, not true. As a matter of fact, most people do far too much midsection work. Your midsection is partly genetic and partly dietary. What you should be focusing on for your midsection is to, work it from several different angles, to just feel like it's thoroughly worked. Use a moderate rep range. Stay away from using added weight. Stay absolutely away from doing any side bend work that's going to start to develop your obliques, unless you want that wide, blocky waistline, which is because you develop your oblique muscles, okay? All you need to do is work moderate weight. And I always, matter of fact, I tell my clients, I put them on usually some type of a circuit when it comes to their abdominals. And I do not work the abdominals countless sets. Same type of thing. 1 or 2 sets per exercise at the end, rotate it around maybe once around the circuit, done. How well your muscles will develop and show is partly going to be genetic and partly going to be dietary. The leaner you get, the better chance they are to show. But I have to tell you, I know many people that are in show condition and still have very little abdominal development to show for it. And even if they sat there and worked with, hundreds of pounds of resistance, they're not going to develop thick muscular abdominal wall. It's just the way the muscle group is. It's just, some people just have a higher, thicker, the more defined midsection than others. The only exception to that is, like I said, when you get into drugs, if you notice, most of them have a very pushed out, distended type of look to their abdominal area. When you see those really thick abdominal muscles, and certainly not the protruding kind, you'll see that in bodybuilders, you see that in CrossFit athletes. I'm telling you, every one of them. We're going to can it off there. There's still another half of this list, which I'd like to do, and maybe I'll do that on Monday. And I'm going to leave it at that. Meanwhile, any of you people who have known me from my answers in those groups, I'd love it if you could, go to my YouTube station and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Anybody that's interested in coming in on Spotlight Fridays, keep in mind this is a natural bodybuilder, a natural fitness athletes platform, or just natural people who, are getting themselves in shape. If you have a story, I want to hear it. If I want to hear it, everybody else wants to hear it. This is your chance to get some recognition, notoriety, and inspire other people. You can't promote natural training and, good, honest, hard work if you don't support it. Okay? I do offer, training. I have lots of experience, 43 years plus, lots of competitive experience. And, but, my main goal here is to promote this platform. So do me a favor, reach out, like the videos, watch the live shows every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. And I think for now, we're going to call it that, and we're going to call it a weekend. Everybody take care. This is Both Figures Naturally, the way it is. My name is Perry, and over and out. God bless.